Now, there's a lot of management time goes into advertising courses, promoting courses, etc. I think they need to be looking for a course in the €6,000 or €7,000 range that might stretch over 4 or 5 months. It would also have the advantage of, if you're bringing people in from overseas, it's something of more substance to offer them. I know that's very difficult in this current climate and so on, but I think that's a critical. That's one of the products that they need to put into their product mix. That's all part of the whole, marketing scenario.
I saw as well that they were talking about making payment terms easier.
Yes.
Now that is fraught with difficulty.
Well, it is, and particularly in a school, like the way they would want to be looking at that is certainly they'd want half up front. They would probably want to give a discount for people who pay fully up front, and perhaps a little interest charge, a minor interest charge, some sort, for the additional amount. But they want to be very careful there, because if the reason is whether given the instalment plans is people can't afford to pay in the first place, they could end up organising courses where people won't be able to pay in the middle of them, and there'll be a lot of difficulties and bad will from students as a result. There was a case only recently in Dublin of a private school who called somebody in to pay their fees, and it was all over the radio and the television, etc. So it's a very close-knit environment, the school. It's a very interpersonal thing, and if people are being, if there's fee issues and difficulties, it can all get around the place very quickly and become very sensitive. Yeah,
I was interested, Harry, in the fact that she was talking about her marketplace to a great degree has drifted back to Eastern Europe, which I thought was sort of interesting. If, for example, she wanted to go there and try and drag the marketplace back, or indeed do things there, is there any impediment to her working on the ground in, say, Hungary or in the Czech Republic or something?
Well, firstly, as I say, from the legal aspect, she's going to have to take legal advice in whichever jurisdiction she's going to operate in, because legally that's the environment she's going to be in. She can't take legal advice in Ireland to set up a business in Hungary, so she's going to have to find an ethically competent lawyer there. But going back there to the point, I mean, she essentially has a contract with the customers in relation to it, so she's going to have to look at the terms and conditions on which she engages with these people. That's going to be very important, because if there's default in relation to that contract, it's going to come back to the terms and conditions. So she's going to have to look at those and have them properly drafted. That's a very key element of what she's going to do. Other issues which I think we haven't touched on really is in foreign jurisdictions there's going to be tax complications going to be different to here. She's going to have to take tax advice in relation to those issues. And then you have licensing issues, depending on whether she's a partner or whether she's a franchise. I mean, who is going to have the license? She's going to be the licensor, she's going to have a licensee. How is she going to control that relationship? So, there's going to be a license fee. How is that going to be controlling the flow of cash? They're all issues for her in her business, which she's going to think out before she gets into it, before she jumps, and the legal structure she's going to put around it is going to be critical.
Yeah. Paddy, just getting away from Lorraine for a second and the business in general, do you think enough people are looking further down the track and saying, hey, guess what, I can now empower an entire workforce and not have them working in my office, start to move them out, therefore cutting down the infrastructure, cutting down on overhead, and maybe starting off into a new post-recession phase with a much leaner organisation?
Yeah. Well, what I think the current economic climate is actually forcing companies to think anew about their businesses. So, whereas maybe before some companies had the luxury of not having to do that, I suppose one upside that the likes of Vodafone see from the current situation is that more and more small businesses are looking at reinventing themselves and looking at how can I work smarter rather than just harder. And that's where technology, mobile technology comes into play, other technology, about being effective and efficient while away from the office and in terms of your business process. So more and more companies are doing it, and they are the companies that are surviving out there. So, it's about all of us upping our game in order to not just survive, but to excel in the current environment.
And Damien, you're obviously seeing it at the coalface. You're seeing companies making it through, and also companies who have found they can't make it through. Just in terms of where companies need to be going forward, is it about better planning? Is it about engaging with advisors, engaging with banks and so on?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of supports out there. I mean, there's supports from government agencies, Enterprise Ireland, county enterprise boards and so on. There's support from the banks, there's support from local chambers and so on. So she should, utilise that as much as possible, take as much advice as possible from other business people, from other industries. I think that going back to the point that Paddy made, it's essential that she is looking at the business model and continuously reinventing it. The successes that we've seen in the current environment are those businesses that are looking to change and looking to redevelop themselves. In terms of from the banking perspective, I mean, what we look at in terms of banking is, where the business is well managed and it's a viable business, we will support those businesses grow, because it's in our interest and it's in the interest of Ireland Inc. for these businesses to go.
Harry, just giving Lorraine, if you were to give her some words of advice, you know, and look a year ahead maybe at where she should be and where her business should be, what do you think are the key things she needs to focus on now to take it to the next level?
Well, I'm presuming that she has her own house in order first before she moves forward, because, I mean, unless you have the Irish foundations built, it's going to be impossible to develop a relationship with a company in a different jurisdiction. So legally, all her structures here must be built on solid foundations. So she has to determine the base on which she's going to move forward. That means putting in place the correct foundations with her employees, with her customers, putting all those contracts in place, and then moving forward and determining how she's going to develop the relationship internationally, and the structure she's going to use that, and the partners she's going to use internationally, be they tax, accounting, legal, because she's going to have the correct partners to roll this model out, whatever model she chooses on abroad.
And I think she needs to be careful as well that she doesn't overexpand too quickly, because that'll put a serious strain on cash flow. So she just needs to ensure that it's well managed, well balanced.
There's no formula for that, though, is there?
There isn't, but I suppose it's back down to the management of the business. You know, if she is forward-looking and she's looking at a kind of a 3 to 5 year time span, then she can manage the way she's expanding. A lot of companies try to overexpand, and that's when they hit difficulties.
Stephen, you know, if you were to pick a few key things that any business, but in particular this business, needs to focus on right now, what are they?
Well, I've said that one major course needs to be looked at. I think she would need to look at the whole tax structure for the two jurisdictions, and they're interconnected. She'd need to make sure she's properly capitalised. I'm not so sure, but I don't have all the information, that going to Los Angeles with another college is a good idea at this point in time, because she's not just expanding the business, she's effectively setting up a brand new business. The common theme through all of this is it's all people, it's students, it's teachers, it's professional staff giving advice, and you know, you can't replicate that so easily. So I think she's going to find herself under a lot of time pressures and all kinds of pressures of that sort, and I'm not sure it's a good time to be expanding. So I would say to concentrate on the Irish operation would be my advice to her. Yeah.
Paddy, just in terms of taking that brand forward, you're in the big brand business.
Yes.
It's very difficult to build a brand. Is now the time to be doing?
I think, you know, all of us have to keep building our brand, and all of us have to keep working on it. For smaller companies, it's difficult because they don't necessarily have the budgets that big organisations have. But I think, you know, it's targeting her services to the market cleverly and correctly. I also think it's looking at the other point I think that Stephen was making in terms of moving the business forward, that I think focus on the Irish operation, but also focus internationally on our target market to get the clients in, because it's a much, much bigger market, and bring them back into Ireland to replenish what she's lost from Eastern Europe. So, you know, targeting the market effectively, if we call that building a brand, that's success.
Damien, cash is the name of the game, financing the business is also the name of the game. Some final words from you on what a company like this should be looking for and the future, you know, in a financial sense.
Yeah. I suppose in terms of ongoing cash flow, it's segments of the market that will provide her with that cash flow coming in on a day-to-day basis. I think the biggest caution is in terms of where there's credit terms. She needs to ensure that there is tight credit terms in place, and that she is managing them closely. Because some of the more common failures is not being able to collect the debtors.
Well, there you are, some sound advice from our panel, and we'd like to thank them for being with us. They are, of course, Stephen Egan, Damien Young, Harry Feely and Paddy Collins. Join us next time when we'll be dipping into the farming sector to see a company that has bucked the recessionary trend by changing its product range, and very successfully too. That's when we look at another company facing business challenges.